Before I start my message, I just remembered that I didn't say anything about next week being Father's Day. And if I haven't got a photo from you of yourself, if you're male, or of your fathers, send me one, okay? So email it to me, or you'll have to bring by a hard copy and scan it. I'll have Reverend Warren scan it in this week. But I'd like to do that. Whoops, there we go. So that we can do the slide for Father's Day, okay? All right, I have most of you, and I search Facebook for those who don't send me one, so it might not be your favorite photo if you want to send me one. All right, today's message is called C'est la vie, and Giselle and I have these discussions sometimes after service, and a couple weeks ago she said, we were talking, and she said, C'est la vie, and I said, oh my gosh, that really sings to my soul. I'm going to have to do a talk titled C'est la vie. So this is it for Giselle. But C'est la vie is a French term, and it means that's life. But it could be also thought of as, oh, that's meant to be. How many of us say that? Mm-hmm. Yeah. You see, because C'est la vie is really referring to the natural flow of how things happen, and yet, and we can compare it to divine order. But sometimes when we say, oh, that was meant to be, we're not thinking about it being divine order, are we? We're thinking it like in a negative connotation or in sarcasm, aren't we? Because we say, oh, that's meant to be because you think somebody's done something that they deserve to have that happen to them, right? Instead of like looking at it like it's just the flow of life. But if you look at the idea of divine order, the first thing you want to put into your mind is that divine order is always good. So if you use C'est la vie as a sarcastic remark, then one, you're not aligning with that term, and two, it's definitely not in alignment with divine order. But today we're going to explore some points about divine order and how that ties into prosperity, and actually how the power of imagination, which is the power for this month of June, ties into that whole thing. And how it all aligns with capital T truth. But first we're going to say our statements of truth together, please. I am a child of God. I am deserving of good in my life. I am accepting my good now. So if you were here last week, then you know we're sharing a top 10 list of spiritual growth. And last week Reverend Warren spoke on I am one with the Bible, and which was number 10. And this week I'm speaking on number 9, which is I am divine order. Now you might be thinking, how am I divine order? You know, because we talk about divine order like it's something outside of us, like we can be in alignment with divine order, or we can follow divine order, but how can I be divine order, which might just be a whole different thing, right? Well, don't start stressing out, because we're going to help define that through this message and put it all to ease. And the very first thing you have to look at is really kind of what Reverend Warren said in his meditation, that through the unlimited vastness of the power of imagination, we were born through divine order, weren't we? Yes. Think about that. I mean, we are each unique with gifts and talents that are ours to use throughout our lifetime, and we are created in the image and likeness of God, and through that truth, we can easily see the variety of ideas expressed by God in each creation that He has made, which is each one of us, right? And what the power of imagination God has, right? Because God has created all of us just to be that perfect expression of who we are, which is such a blessing. So, if we look at the revealing word for divine order, it says, divine order is the first law of the universe. Indeed, there could be no universe unless its various parts were kept in perfect order. Since the universe only exists out of divine order, we too only exist out of this truth, right? The thought that made you, and that made you, and that made you, and everyone in this room, and myself, the very thought that made us, is a perfect pattern of ideas that came together to create and use the
power of imagination to come forth in divine order to make our bodies, to make our minds, to make our hearts, to make us our personalities. That's why we're all unique and divine. But our bodies function in spite of how we treat them, or sometimes because of how we treat them. Right? Yes?
Yes.
Yeah. And the thing is, the pattern of ideas that comes together for each of us is a combination that makes us who we are today. We are divine order in expression. We are divine order. It's kind of like thinking about craftsmen, musicians, artists, writers, doctors, anybody that has a skill and uses it on a daily basis or uses it to create or do something. They have a skill and they perfect it. They practice and practice and perfect it. And they can create and recreate through that ability that they have. Even doctors, they go to school, they learn, they grow, and they practice their craft over and over again. And it becomes second nature when you do that. How many people do something that they can just do easily and effortlessly, and it's just like second nature to you? Yeah, everybody has something, and maybe you have more than something. Maybe you have several things that you're good at, or maybe you thought, okay, I'd like to play the flute. So you pick up a flute and you just start playing. You think, how do I know how to play that flute? But it's divine order working through you and the power of imagination that allows your fingers to move and your breath to take that sound out into the universe. It's the same thing. It's that ability that we have within us to be that expression of divine order and imagination. It's a natural ability. And all these come from divine ideas that come rushing in. And they give us that power to come forth, and we have to keep aligned with those divine ideas. We've talked about this before. And we shape them through demonstrating what we perceive that divine idea to be. Now, when we hold to the universal law of the universe, what happens then is the divine idea stays in alignment with the divine idea, and it comes out to be something in expression that is good. I mean, from the chairs you sit on, to the clothes you wear, to the shoes on our feet, to our cars, all of those are divine ideas that have come through somebody, that they kept it in the divine order to bring forth something good, to bless us and benefit us. And that's what we do. That's those natural things that we can do with ease and grace without even thinking about it. That's the natural flow of divine order and divine ideas. They kind of go together. The thing that happens, though, is that sometimes we forget about that whole idea of the oneness with God, and that the divine ideas can come through us and we can keep them in divine order. Because what happens is we can get our personalities or our egos in the way, and we start making it all about us. I mean, how many people have been around a musician or an artist or somebody creative, even a doctor? Warren says, some doctors have God complexes. But, they let their egos get in the way, and it almost takes away from the beauty that they're bringing forth, because they're no longer in alignment with that divine idea or divine order, are they? They make it about themselves, or they start acting like they're better than somebody else because they have this talent or they have this ability. But when we stay in alignment with that universal truth that comes from the idea of the universal law of divine order, then it comes through easily and effortlessly, and it'll unfold naturally. When we quit trying to put a square peg in a round hole, we can allow divine order to work in our lives. Have you ever tried to do something over and over again and you just keep making a mess of it? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sometimes there's things we probably shouldn't be doing. We should hire somebody else to do. Or we should go back and research and study more and figure it out better for ourselves before we keep trying over and over again. Have you ever done that? Or I'll even do, lose something or be looking for something. We just keep looking and looking, and we're looking in the same place. The minute you stop and claim divine order, or you claim peace, or you recenter on the truth, guess what? You turn around and there it is, isn't it? sitting right there. Now, how did you miss that the whole time? Because you were living in chaos in your mind. You weren't following the universal law of divine order. The minute we open our minds to the power of imagination, we can bring forth the demonstration of good through divine order. I know I want good in my life. I think all of you want good in your life, or else you wouldn't be here. So we have to open our minds to that, to the power of imagination, and demonstrate the good through divine order. And if we understand this, guess what? We open up to all kinds of prosperous ways that that's going to manifest in our lives. We will be able to do that thing that we thought we never could do, or something will come in the mail that was the perfect gift, or a check for money, or whatever it is that you're desiring will come forth. It can happen that easily. Well, I was doing some research on divine order through Fillmore's Myrtle and Charles's stuff, and I found some great quotes about divine order. And I love this one from Christian Healing, and I really thought it was invaluable, mainly because we tend to look at things from sense consciousness, don't we? We tend to look at things from the outer, or we get busy in our day, and it's all about what's going on around us, or, got to get this done, got to get that done. We don't sometimes stop and just live from that essence of who we are. We tend to do that when we come to church on Sunday, but, sometimes we leave and it all goes back to the chaos. So I thought it was a great way for us to look at divine order and kind of put it all in perspective. It's kind of like when we say, oh, it was meant to be. Now we know that, oh, it was meant to be is not a good thing to say unless you're using it as a positive statement, right? Because if you're using it to be sarcastic or like a karma thing, then that is not meant to be. Because there is no bad meant to be, only good. And since you know that now, I can give you this quote. We connect our soul forces with whatever we center our love upon. Here's where Ruth comes in as the power of love. If we love the things of sense or materiality, meaning how cute our clothes are, or do we have a great car, and we're getting hung up on all that, and there's nothing wrong with having all that. We want to have all that. We're going to be all millionaires. We're going to all look good, right? If we love the things of sense and materiality, we are joined or attached to them through a fixed law of being. In the divine order of being, though, the soul or thinking part of man is joined to its spiritual ego. That's a whole different thing. If it allows itself to become joined to the outer or sense consciousness, it makes personal images that are limitations. It puts us in that idea of lack and limitations. So maybe the reason why you're not a millionaire is because you're living from that sense consciousness and making it all about stuff, instead of looking at that spiritual self that cries out for the truth, or for all that we have and all that we do that is naturally ours through the power of the universe. This, though, is also where the power of imagination can come in and allow us to move beyond sense consciousness and connect to the superconsciousness. And we know that the superconsciousness is within us. It is our connection with God. We also call it the Christ within. And that's where we receive those divine ideas. And we can keep them pure, and we can manifest them through divine order, allowing them to unfold in our life. And the result is going to be what? Epic. Good. Yes, it's only going to be good because we keep it aligned. Today's daily word was, it was kind of funny because Giselle gave me the talk title, and I went home, started typing the message, and then, when I go to put it in the computer and see the daily word, and I said, divine order is for today, and I saw the story of Ruth and Naomi, and I said, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to go and squeeze some of that in there because it's powerful. And so, the daily word was divine order, and it is. It touched on the story of Naomi and her daughter-in-laws, Ruth and Orpah. And everybody always wants to say Oprah, but that's how Oprah got her name because somebody pronounced it wrong. And it focused on Ruth giving up her family and going with Naomi to her homeland and adopting her people and her God. But at first we might think it's really horrific that Ruth and Orpah both lost their husbands during the war, because that's what the Bible story is about. And we might even think of how sad it is that Orpah has to leave those two and go back to her own family. But that was traditionally what you did if you lost your husband. You went back to your family and hopefully somebody would support you. But the thing in the story that we tend to forget is that Ruth and Orpah's husbands were Naomi's sons. Naomi had lost both of her sons. And prior to losing her sons, she had lost her husband. And you don't hear about how sad or tragic any of that is, do you? Read the whole story. It's 4 chapters. It's not very long. But you don't hear about that. And you might even start thinking, oh, poor Naomi. You know, what a heartbreak she must have been through. But we don't hear that in the story. And you might even think, how is that divine order for this poor woman to lose her husband and her 2 sons? One of her daughter-in-laws goes off and leaves her, and one of them wants to stay with her, and she's got to figure out how to feed this woman and herself. But you know what? Naomi doesn't focus on that at all. And I found this quote from Dynamics for Living, which really kind of fits into the whole thing. Whatever there is in mind, body, or affairs that is out of harmony is easily adjusted when you open the way in your mind for the manifestation of divine order. Naomi had adjusted her thoughts throughout this story. She had to have. Because it's not about her poor old thing that had lost her husband and her 2 sons. It wasn't even focused on that at all. And so Naomi was living in the moment, living that all of this was happening through divine order, and her highest good was still coming forth. And guess what? She never complained. She never cried. She was there looking out for her 2 daughter-in-laws and trying to see the highest good for them. And what actually happens in the story, and the joy that comes to Naomi in this, is at the end of chapter 4, the end of the whole story of Ruth and Naomi, when Ruth marries Boaz, which some of you, if you know anything about the Bible, you know this story. But she ends up bearing a son, and a lot of people miss this in the story. But Ruth's son, she asked Boaz, is it okay if we carry on the family name? So Naomi gets a grandson through the daughter-in-law from Boaz and Ruth, but the name is going to be Naomi's family name. You see, what happened was the baby is named Obed, who later has a son named Jesse, who becomes the father of David, which of course is the lineage that they tie Jesus to. All right? So the blessing in the story was in perfect divine order, because Naomi's family line was still going to be connected through Jewish history to the birth of Jesus. So she followed whatever came next. She took the next step. She followed whatever was happening in her life, and she never complained. Can we do that?
Yes.
We can. How many of us do that? And you see, you never know where you're going to be at in the story. Your story of your life, you do not know right now, right here, what the next thing is going to happen. But if you can believe and know that it is all good every minute of the day, then it's not going to matter if you go out there and get in a car wreck or nothing, because the good is coming forth. And if we focus on the good, we know that divine order is working in our lives and coming through us and going to manifest good in our lives, correct?
Yes.
Yes. But we don't do that sometimes, do we? Let that sense consciousness get in the way. Poor me. I got in a car wreck. Now, Olive Grace didn't do that. She saw the highest good, and by the time the car got to the junkyard or the repair place, it burned up. Thank God she wasn't in the car, you know. There was divine order in that whole thing that happened. She's got a beautiful new car out there. I'm kind of wanting one of those now. But anyway, we never know what our story will look like or what part of where we are at in the story of our life. And we have to be willing to say, I'm happy where I am in the story of my life. I know that it is good right now, no matter what it looks like. And that the next step I take is going to be good. And if we can do that, guess what? We be living in divine order, and more good's going to keep rushing in. It's all about our thoughts. And here's some more enlightened thoughts from Fillmore. Before you can realize the mighty power of ideas, you must unify them. All must pull together. Get your ideas in divine order, and a mighty mind force, don't you love that, will begin to work for you right away. The divine order is necessary to the upbuilding of both mind and body. This divine order is the kingdom of heaven, so often referred to by Jesus. To attain this unity and harmony of mind, it is necessary to have perfect statements of truth and to adhere to them in thought and word. The perfect affirmation, statements of truth, the perfect one right now for your life is, I am divine order. Say it with me.
I am divine order.
Because this is when we can stop and feel the presence of the Christ within and know our good is coming forth. Aiden is singing the song, Hear Me Preach, you know. Oh, it might be Riley. I forgot she's in there now. Anytime that we are unsure, uneasy, not sure about a decision, what the next step should be is to stop and breathe and affirm divine order. Because the minute you do that, divine order goes with what? It begins with a G. Good. Yeah, and that's when we turn within, and that's when we align. The decisions, our ideas, our thoughts, all realign. We get them all in order. We get all of it in order. We'll get our thoughts in order, we'll get our words in order, and it'll all come back out in divine order. And that's what's beautiful. And I invite you to practice this week, you know. Anytime something starts to cause you to go to sense consciousness, just stop and breathe and claim divine order and see what happens. Write down all those little tidbits, because I think you'll be surprised how often that can make a difference in your life. You see, all we have to do is when we get those little thoughts of sense consciousness is release them. Because we don't want to keep living from lack or limitation. We want to have more of that good coming forth and know that we have that good coming forth. And it's easy for us to do when we just release those negative thoughts. And the minute we release them, then we need to come rushing in with an affirmation, because we've opened up a void. Do you understand that? Yeah. But every step we take will be the perfect and right step if we follow divine order. Now, the good news is that we always have the power of imagination to help us in these situations. You know, sometimes that sense consciousness kicks in and somebody's actually kind of barking or saying something and it's not very nice or loving or kind or friendly or whatever. Start using the power of imagination. I mean, either envision them as some cartoon character or you know, envision how the situation could look differently. Whatever it is that can trigger your mind not to go into reactionary mode. You see, that's what's cool about the power of imagination. We can use it to help us. We can use it to bring forth more of what we really want. And we're so blessed because we don't have to look at lack and limitation. The minute we turn on that power of imagination, the ideas come rushing in. If you were here at the grant writing workshop yesterday, the minute they chose what they were going to work on, each person chose something off our ideas and desires list that we have up here that we all did when we first started this whole building thing. They chose one thing to start research on. And the minute they started doing that, the divine ideas were just popping out of their heads. And they were like speaking these, you know, and it was like almost like they were going to start speaking in tongues. But they were excited. They were on fire. Won't you agree, Ashley and Pat? I know Judy's shaking her head, yes. But it was so cool to see those divine ideas coming through them because they were in that place to open up to that. And that's all we have to do. We just have to get into that idea that the imagination can help us align all that. Sometimes, though, we find it hard to align divine order and imagination together. So a simple thing to remember when you're thinking about those working together is the idea of the power of the law of giving and receiving is the law of substance that equalizes all things. To realize and maintain divine order, substance must both have an inlet and an outlet in consciousness and must be kept moving. I love this little thing I found of giving and receiving and abundance in the middle. And that's the truth. I mean, if you're giving and receiving, that's how the prosperity thing works. That's how we move from lack and limitation into abundance. It's all ties together with all of them. We just have to release anything that's standing in our way. I talked about this a few weeks ago about the things that we hold on to work like bricks and we're just building a wall. But the minute we get release something that we no longer wear, something we've been saving for the garage sale that we were going to have the last 3 years that we never have had, any of those material things that we no longer use or need, the minute we release those, guess what? We're opening up a vortex, and that allows any of those thoughts, ideas, negativity that is stirring of lack and limitation, it lets them suck out through that vortex too. Then we can come in with all that is good. I got a question for you. Have you ever wanted something for Christmas or your birthday, and you knew that a certain person was going to get it for you, but you never told the certain person what it was that you wanted? You just expected them to know because you're so sweet and kind and loving that they want to get you what you want. Have you ever done that? I've done that. I've done that in the past. Poor Warren, he's experienced this a couple times. It's like I knew that he was supposed to know that what it was I wanted for Christmas or my birthday or something. And then he didn't get it for me. And then I was like, what? Disappointed, angry maybe, a little upset. You ever had that, Mindy?
No, I don't.
She writes a list.
Oh, okay, see. I started doing that too. I've given them a list before. Or I tell one of my kids, they're real good about sharing. But even in that simple thing like that, we set ourselves up for failure. We set ourselves up for disappointment and anger, and we don't have to, do we? No. But we get ourselves in these little places sometimes. It's like a little wedge that we want to live in that little, well, actually it's not really a wedge. It's more like the restroom, with a little pot in there that we can sit on and go, poor old me, the pity pot. And I know all that sounds ridiculous, but before you process your thoughts around something like that, you can keep playing that game over and over again. So anytime there's anything in your life that brings up lack or limitation, we have to work through it. And again, all we have to do is go back and claim divine order, and the things start falling into place. Because we know that's going to bring forth good. Well, how does this whole idea of giving and receiving and tithing and imagination and divine order all tie in together? I mean, you're warm. I'm warm too. I see you waving.
Yeah, I think it's probably not the AC. It could be something else.
Oh no, it's me. It's the air. I'm thinking it's air.
Yeah.
But, it all seems like it doesn't really tie together so much. But when we're in that flow of giving and receiving, then we're in the flow of divine order, aren't we? And tithing is, again, one of those universal laws. Reverend Warren mentioned it a little bit in the blessing, but, I always used to think of tithing as like a have to. Anybody ever think about that? When I was in Catholic school, in grade school, the nun said everybody has to put at least a quarter in the envelope and bring it every week to put in the offering for church. And they gave you a box of envelopes. I mean, I'm not kidding you, it had your number on it. And by golly, your number was matched to your name, and those envelopes better come. And I said to the nun, I was always bold, sorry. But I said, well, I don't have any money. I don't get an allowance, and my parents don't give me any money. And she was like, oh, real sarcastic, oh yeah, you get something, and you better make sure you put something in that envelope, like this. And at first, my little heart was, because I was so sweet and kind, I was like, kind of broken-hearted. I was like, what am I going to do? Am I going to go to, prosperity jail or something, tithing jail, and all this? But what was funny about it is the minute I kind of took a breath and I thought about what she had said to me, I thought, hey, I've got 9 brothers and sisters at home, and I don't think anybody's going to be barking at my parents about me putting in an envelope or not. And I just thought it became kind of funny that she expected me to do that. So what I did with the envelopes every week is I just drew a picture and stuck it in there and put the envelope in. Nobody ever said anything to me. I never went to tithing jail either. But it did kind of put a thing in my mind about tithing being a negative thing. And you know, when you're a kid and that happens to you, it can happen. But the good news is that once you start really looking at the whole idea of how that's a spiritual law and how it plays into your life and how it takes you from lack and limitation and puts you in the flow of divine order, then you don't mind it at all, and it's not an ugly, nasty thing. And nobody's going to tell anybody in here that they better put their money in the jar every week, and we're not going to give out envelopes with your number on them. And there's no tithing jail, so you don't have to worry about that. But in Jesus Christ Heals, it says, well, let me see. Yes. I am the offspring. Let's say this together. I am the offspring of God, and I am one with His perfect wisdom, which is now ordering my life in divine harmony and health. Isn't that powerful? And Fillmore goes on with this. Let's say it together. Ask for wisdom, then affirm divine order. Put yourself in unity with Spirit. Then you will come into the consciousness of a new world of thought and act and find yourself doing many things differently because the orderly mind that directs the universe is working through you. Isn't that powerful? I mean, that is powerful. All we have to do is affirm divine order is working in through us, and it puts it all in order. At the Unlimited Abundance Society 2 weeks ago, Reverend Warren shared this statement that I thought was powerful, and it really has helped me these last 2 weeks. And this is what it is. God already has it done. Say that. God already has it done. And it fell deep into my soul when he said that, because I was trying to make sure I had everything lined up for the grant writing workshop, and I'm working on the leadership workshop that we're doing in July at Atlanta Unity for all the UMOS subregion. Him and I are co-hosting a leadership training there, which we invite all of you to sign up to go. It's great fun, and it's free, and UMOS puts it on, and they in fact give you lunch and give you snacks on Friday night, and it's Friday evening and Saturday. And you're done by 4, so it's not limiting in your weekend. But I was working, so I looked at all the grant stuff, had that all ready to go, and then I was like stressing because, you know, the baby takes a lot of time, and I wasn't having time to look at that workshop for July, and I really wanted it to be complete. And I just stopped and I said, God already has it done. And so then I finally got to the point where I could open it up in my computer and double check. And I didn't realize that in March when I was working on it, I had it done. I thought I was still needing to work on it. And when I realized God already had it done, I think God got it done for me, actually. But all of a sudden it was like a miracle. Oh my God, it is done. But it's powerful. And when we think about anything that we're going to do or anything that we desire, God already has it done for us. All we have to do is what? Receive it. We have to just receive it. And it's so wonderful. And the good is all around us all the time. And I invite you to stay open to that idea this week. Just stay open to the idea of the good being here for us in every moment. And that divine order is working towards the highest good for all. So I invite you to say this prayer with me from Myrtle. It's a very short little prayer.